The moment my husband's assistant looked me up and down and said, "No wonder he stays late at the office," I'd avoid going home too. Something inside me went very still. Not angry, not shocked, just clear. I smiled at her. Soft. Polite. The kind of smile women learn early, the kind that hides teeth and sharp thoughts. Her name wasn't Elizabeth anymore. In my version of the story, her name is Lena Parker. And my husband's name is Mark. The office Christmas party was in full swing. Crystal glasses. Fake snow on the windows. Partners laughing too loudly. Wives pretending not to listen while listening to everything. I leaned a little closer to Lena and said quietly, "That's funny. I was just thinking about how much Mark trusts you." Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. "What?" she asked. "All those late nights. All that access," I continued, still smiling. "It must feel nice. Being trusted completely. Even after mistakes." Something flickered in her eyes. The confidence cracked, just for a second, like a hairline fracture in glass. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice had changed. Less bold. Less careless. I stepped closer. Close enough to smell her perfume. Close enough that only she could hear me. "Does Mark know about October 12th? Her face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. "I'm wondering," I added softly, "if the senior partners know you've been accessing confidential settlement files from his computer after hours." Her hand shook. The champagne trembled. I haven't. "I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening, Lena," I said, now loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Then I turned and walked toward the bar like I'd just commented on the weather. My hands were shaking when I ordered a gin and tonic. I'd been planning that moment for 3 days. Planning is easy. Execution is not. 6 months earlier, none of this existed. That's when I first noticed Mark changing. We'd been married 9 years. Together 12. I knew his rhythms the way you know your own house in the dark. Which floorboard creaks. Which door sticks. Mark was a corporate attorney at Hawthorne and Cole, a comfortable mid-sized firm in Chicago. Late nights were normal. But suddenly, they felt different. Before, he came home tired, smelling like coffee and toner. He ate whatever I left, talked a little, slept fast. Now, he came home wired. Showered immediately. Picked at his food. Always texting. And Wednesdays, the quiet office day, suddenly became late nights. I checked the credit cards. 3 hotel charges. Downtown Marriott. All Wednesdays. I hired a private investigator named Rachel. 2 weeks later, she called me from a Target aisle while I held a gray throw pillow I didn't remember choosing. "He's not having an affair," she said. "At least not a physical one." They met late. They talked. For hours. Then she told me about the DUI. Lena's DUI. October 12th, disappeared charges. Sealed records. That kind of miracle takes lawyers. And favors. Rachel kept digging. Billing irregularities. Phantom travel expenses. Access to files Lena should never touch. By the time she finished, I felt like I was holding a live grenade. I didn't confront Mark. What would that do? He'd deny it. Or cry. Or twist it until I felt guilty for asking. So I waited. And Lena handed me the moment herself. Wrapped in an insult. Delivered in front of witnesses. Across the ballroom now, she stood alone. Pale. Watching Mark talk to his senior partner like nothing was wrong. Good. Let her sit with it. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. Dinner was announced with the soft clink of a glass and polite applause. People began drifting toward their assigned tables, smiles fixed, coats forgotten. Law firm parties always ran on choreography, who sat with whom, which spouses were placed next to which partners, who mattered this year. Mark appeared at my side as we walked. "Are you having fun?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. I'd lived with this man long enough to hear fear when he wrapped it in politeness. "Lovely party," I said. The hotel outdid itself. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "What did you say to Lena?" I stopped walking and looked at him. "She insulted me in front of other people," I said evenly. I reminded her that trust is important in professional relationships. His face shifted, confusion, then understanding, then something close to panic. "We'll talk at home," he said. "Oh, we will," I replied. Our table was near the front. We were seated with Richard Hawthorne, one of the founding partners, and his wife. Linen tablecloths. Crystal glasses. Perfect posture. 3 tables away, I could see Lena. She wasn't eating. She wasn't drinking anymore either, just staring at her phone like it might explode. Richard leaned toward me with a proud smile. "Mark's been doing excellent work this year. Exceptional billables." "That's wonderful," I said, my smile steady. "He puts in the hours," Richard continued. "That's what separates good associates from great ones." Mark shifted in his chair. "He certainly works late," I said lightly. Richard chuckled. "Lucky man. A wife who understands." I wondered what he'd say if he knew those hours included travel that never happened. Work that never existed. Dessert arrived. Chocolate mousse. Lena stood up. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't smile. Just grabbed her purse and walked quickly toward the exit. Mark noticed immediately. "Excuse me," he muttered, standing. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I'll be right back." I waited 30 seconds. Then I excused myself too. The hallway outside the ballroom was quiet. Soft carpet. Gold-framed mirrors. Voices echoed from near the coat check. "She knows something," Lena said, her voice sharp with panic. "She mentioned October 12th. That was sealed," Mark hissed. "Nobody knows about that." "She also mentioned the files," Lena said. "The confidential ones." "How would she know that unless—" "Have you been accessing them?" Mark asked. Silence. Then Lena's voice cracked. I needed to know how bad it was. I felt cold. Not shocked. Just colder than I'd been in months. "The Peterson case has holes," Lena whispered. "Big ones. Anyone who looks closely will see the hours don't add up." "You shouldn't have looked," Mark said, his voice shaking now. "Do you know what that risk is?" "I was trying to protect us," she cried. "My name is on the documentation, Mark. If you go down, I go with you." That's when I stepped around the corner. They both froze. "Hi," I said pleasantly. "They're about to do the gift raffle." Lena looked like she might faint. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked her. "You look unwell." She stared at me like I'd just spoken in a different language. "Maybe you should go home," I continued. "Get some rest." After a long moment, she grabbed her coat and left without a word. Mark and I stood alone. "What do you know?" he asked. "Enough," I said. His face crumpled. "I made mistakes," he whispered. "I was under pressure." "I know," I said. "And tomorrow, you're going to decide whether you want to keep living like this." He swallowed. "And us." "That," I said quietly, "depends on what you do next." I turned back toward the ballroom. Behind me, Mark followed, slower, shaken, finally aware that the woman beside him was not blind, not small, and not afraid anymore. We stayed until the end of the party. Leaving early would have raised questions, and questions were dangerous things that night. I laughed at the right moments. I clapped when someone won a spa basket. I finished my dessert slowly, deliberately, while Mark sat beside me like a man waiting for sentencing. He barely touched his wine. His hands kept folding and unfolding in his lap. When we finally said our goodbyes and stepped into the cold Chicago night, neither of us spoke. In the car, Mark tried. "Catherine." I turned on the radio. Classical music filled the space between us. A piano concerto. Calm. Controlled. I hummed along softly, staring out the window. At home, I hung my red dress carefully back in the closet. It had done its job. "Can we talk now?" Mark asked from the doorway. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tonight, I'm tired." He slept in the guest room. For the first time in 6 months, I slept through the night. 2 days later, Lena Parker announced she was leaving Hawthorne and Cole to pursue new opportunities. The email was warm, grateful, professional. She thanked everyone for the support and mentorship. She received a glowing reference and a quiet severance. just like I said she would. Mark started coming home at 6. Every night. No late Wednesdays. No mysterious texts. His phone stayed face up on the counter now, like a peace offering. 3 weeks after the Christmas party, he sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold. "I told Richard," he said. "I waited. I confessed about the billing on the Peterson case. Offered to repay everything. Accepted whatever consequences they decided. And," I asked, "I'm on probation for a year. Partnership track delayed. But I still have my job." I nodded. "Did you mention Lena accessing confidential files?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Some things," he said quietly, "don't need to be dragged into the light if the damage is contained." I didn't argue. This wasn't forgiveness. It was Tria. Rachel called me in January. "Heard Lena left," she said. "Friendly exit." "Yes," I replied. "And your husband?" "He's home. He's honest. For now." "You played it perfectly," Rachel said. "I didn't accuse anyone," I replied. "I just asked a question." She laughed softly. The right question at the right time is power. After we hung up, I stood at the kitchen window, watching the snow fall. I thought about the years I'd spent shrinking myself, being agreeable, being patient, being the woman men assumed wouldn't look too closely. I wasn't that woman anymore. Mark came up behind me, tentative. "Do you think," he asked, "we can fix this?" I turned to face him. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But if we try, it'll be as equals. And if you ever lie to me again," I let the silence finish the sentence. He nodded. "I understand." Did he? Maybe. Maybe not. But he knew this much. I was done being underestimated. And if this marriage survived, it would be because he learned to live with a woman who knew exactly where the cracks were and how to apply pressure. Spring came slowly that year. Chicago thawed in stages, dirty snow shrinking into gray islands, sidewalks reappearing, lights staying a little longer each evening. Mark stayed consistent. Home by 6. Phone unlocked. No secrets I could smell before I could see. Consistency is louder than apologies. We didn't rush anything. No dramatic talks about forgiveness. No declarations. Just truth, delivered daily, in small, unglamorous ways. Some nights we sat at opposite ends of the couch, watching the news in silence. Other nights we talked, not about the scandal, not about Lena, but about ordinary things. My students. His cases. What dinner should be. Who needed groceries. Normal. Rebuilt brick by brick. One evening in March, Mark came home pale. "They're auditing the department," he said, dropping his keys into the bowl too hard. Firm-wide review. Compliance, billing, access logs. Everything. My heart didn't race. That surprised me. "And?" I asked. "They didn't find anything new," he said after a beat. The Peterson case stayed contained. My confession, it protected the rest. I studied his face. The fear there wasn't about being caught anymore. It was about losing control. "That's good," I said simply. He nodded, then looked at me like he wanted to ask something else but didn't know how. "What?" I prompted. "Why didn't you burn it all down?" he asked. "You could have. You had enough." I thought about that for a long moment. "Because power isn't destruction," I said. "It's choice. And I wanted you to know I had one." He absorbed that quietly. A week later, I ran into Lena, by accident, in a coffee shop near my school. She looked different. Smaller. Not weak. Just unarmored. She saw me. Froze. Considered pretending not to. Then she walked over. "I didn't know if you'd want to talk," she said. "I don't," I replied. "But you're here now." She nodded. "I'm in Milwaukee. New firm. Different work." "I hope you're driving sober," I said calmly. She flinched, then sighed. I deserved that. We stood there in silence, two women bound briefly by a man's bad decisions and our own. "You scared me that night," she said finally. "I know," I replied. She hesitated. "You could have ruined me." "Yes," I said. "And you could have ruined my life. We're even." I turned and left without another word. That night, Mark asked how my day was. Fine, I said. And, for once, it was true. Our marriage didn't magically heal. Some cracks never disappear. But cracks let light in, if you stop pretending the wall is perfect. I stopped making myself smaller. Stopped softening my questions. Stopped accepting half-answers. And Mark, slowly, carefully, learned that loving me meant standing beside a woman who noticed things. Not a threat. A fact. Months later, lying awake beside him, I realized something important. The moment that changed everything wasn't the confrontation. It wasn't the investigation. It wasn't even the secret. It was the moment I stopped being afraid of what I already knew. Because knowledge doesn't make you dangerous. Knowing when to use it does. And I had learned how to ask the right questions. Finally,